Whew, gives me the chills. It's just, I watched this game live. I was, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, 14 maybe. And, you know, you just remember it. It's not necessarily iconic in the moment. And then the more you get away from it, the more you're like, okay, this is it. And just seeing it here represented so well is just, yeah, chill inducing. The Jordan challenges that they've added in are phenomenal. They're not all quick time events like this. This is literally just the intro when you start up that mode. And you'll see here like kind of how it's going to look. But you start out playing when he was at North Carolina in the finals against Georgetown in '82. And just look at it. I mean, it looks like a game from 1982. They spared no expense, John Hammond, at making this look as authentic as possible. And that's always a good sign that they just didn't half-ass a mode. You know, many times, oh, we're adding this in, or we've put this back. You know, this was a similar mode to something that happened, I don't know, what was it, 8 years ago. And it's so much polish in it that, you know, it gives you hope that, yeah, the rest of the game's going to be good. And it is good. You know, this, I think you would normally play at this camera angle, but I like the authenticity of it a little bit here. But it was just awesome to see this. And, you know, they have all these other iconic moments that you get to play a part of. And I don't think that it's a portion of the game that you should sleep on, because it is so much fun. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do in this game, is create these things for yourself. But yeah, it's just awesome to play as the greatest of all time in all these different scenarios. Now, most people are going to want to know about the modern side, and there are subtle changes that I think are improvements over last year. So last year, there were similar subtle improvements to the gameplay. Maybe not so subtle, but I really thought they improved the shot stick and the timing and all of that. And one primary reason was that even if you didn't hit good timing, you didn't just airball it. There were so many airballs in 21, and 22 fixed a lot of that. So it just kept the flow a lot better. You know, I liked what they did with the stadium or the arenas, where they added in the PA announcers, things like that. They still have all that. But they've changed the shot stick once again, and I think it is also for the better. It's simplified. So really, it's just the very top of the shot is what you have to worry about, making sure you get there. And you don't necessarily see that you're green until the shot goes in, which I also like. I kind of hated that cutaway last year, and it was like an instant gratification thing, and now you're kind of like not that sure. And so especially if you're the opponent, you don't just kind of quit playing. You know, there are these cool modes in my team. You can see that you start in these different eras. So you've got the 80s, you've got the 90s, and you've got the 2000s, and then of course the modern era. Someone who loves those eras like I do, I look forward to playing them. They've got the full draft classes that you can keep going from there, but they have those official rosters made now. But back to the gameplay a little bit. The other thing I think they did to make it a little more realistic is they've pared down kind of the athleticism, I think is a good way to put it. You're not just going to see these crazy blocks when you're trailing or from the sides where you just kind of get in there. And there were so many blocks last year. Every time I played, I felt like I was, you know, getting 15 blocks a game. And that's against the AI too, not just against other people. So you can't blame it on, oh, well, people are taking shots they shouldn't have. And so this year, it's much harder to block, just come out of nowhere and get a block on someone, which I think helps players, or when I say players, I mean the actual NBA players that you're controlling that aren't dunkers, because you never really wanted a point guard or, you know, any player that was a below the rim player, because to finish over these insane blocks, you really need to be able to dunk. And now it's a little bit better. You can get inside, you know, not get blocked and put up a layup, or, you know, a floater, those kind of things, and not necessarily just get blocked all the time. And I think that's a big improvement because it allows you to play a little differently than maybe you would play. And combine that with like maybe some, I don't know if it's easier shooting, but about the same shooting. You know, I do think it's easier to make a contested jump shot than it was last year. I feel like I never made a contested shot. I had to be open, at least a little bit. And it just plays a little bit more realistic. You know, you've got less big dunks or needing big dunks all the time. You've got the more varied layup packages and things like that for those players, and I think that improves it. And the other thing is that you can't just spam turbo. I feel like they say this every year, but spam the turbo button and just constantly do dribble moves until you finally beat your opponent. This year, it's much more. You get 3 chances basically of using that, and if you don't break them down, you got to get rid of it. So it's much more strategic there. So I think the gameplay is much more improved than it was the last 2 years, and built on last year to the great effect. So I would definitely recommend getting 2K23 if you've been a fan.
Hart goes in. Oh, and he got fouled on his way up. He'll head to the line to shoot 2.
First personal foul.
Josh Hart listed at 6'5".